Hey everyone, I have not recorded a video in some time, and you feel like you can learn quite a bit and then you won't have anything more to learn, but that's not true. And as a gang stalking victim, targeted individual, there's always something new. In particular, if you have a critical thinking mind, if you have a non superstitious mind, and you've been educated at college, at school, which the perps or the maggots like to think is useless, which I find so hilarious. Um, they do have a certain point about uh, education teaching you uh, things that cannot be used or are false in real life. There might be some truth in that, but the actual rigor of going to college and reading hundreds of pages a week and writing an academic paper and reading dozens of books in one semester, all of and so much more that I cannot obviously list here. Them discounting that is pure ignorance. But anyways, so yeah, if you're an educated person and you've gone to a good school and you've applied yourself and you have a critical thinking mind and above average IQ, I have like about 120 IQ points, just slightly above average or average, but mostly a non-superstitious mind. You will be continually learning things because you're observing and you're connecting the dots and you're deducing based on the evidence and the actions and the words, just everything. Because the technology used against targeted individuals is helps to obfuscate and confuse the person into a unfortunately a person who talks about aliens and interdimensional beings and demons and angels when it has nothing to do with that. So anyways, with that being said, I wanted to create a video um, that is different in that as a targeted individual, the things that are done to you are so heinous and vile that you become a different person. If when you're tortured, and there's no way for me to explain it unless you actually went through it or heard hours and hours of testimony, um, uh, not the religious kind of testimony, but just explaining to you what we go through and what has been done to us. The murder of my family, the destruction of my career, sexual harassment through technology, taunting, physical torture through electronic weapons. They're called directed energy weapons. They exist. So much more. But today, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to read from an article by this shill, Shill. She's a shill. And 99% of the targeted individuals out there that are manning or organizing these um, uh, targeted individual support groups that you see online, targeted Massachusetts, especially that one. He's a shill. He taunted me on Thanksgiving. I think his name is Frank, and said Happy Thanksgiving because I was alone on Thanksgiving because I'm targeted. Like most targeted individuals were isolated, and they're shills. So she's a shill. Her name's Karen Melton Stewart. She seems very, very legit, and they're all over the country. And none of these public facing organizations are real. They're all manned by plants. People put there to appear, give the appearance that they are targeted individuals, but they are not. They will not, they will all sound the same and behave the same. And they all have a very creepy, psychopathic nature about themselves. And I won't go into this video. There's enough videos where I'm ranting and doing that. For this video, I'm going to read an article that Karen Melton Stewart wrote. And typically what happens is once you come to a piece of knowledge, once a targeted individual comes to a piece of knowledge or has a theory, the perpetrators, the perps, and the government and the private security companies, surveillance, whoever they are, it's not just one person, it's not just one group. What they do is they formulate that and spit that right back at you. So what I'm about to read, not necessarily all of it is true, but it is close to the truth as you can get, and it excludes any real information about who's doing this. Yes, the government is doing this, but actually it's secretive groups like the Skull and Bones, which is a racist, bigoted group. Just type in Skull and Bones racist tattoo. It's all there, and it's not a conspiracy theory. You can see what type of people have these tattoos, and how they act. And once you start seeing the symbols in iconography, you'll start noticing it. But unless it's pointed out to you, it's a conspiracy theory and you're crazy. So Skull and Bones, Freemasons. There was a link that I left in one of my other YouTube videos that lists all of these groups: Shriners, Order of the Morning Star, all of these groups. Like they are the people. I don't like calling them people because they're not people. They're the subhumans, amongst others, like corporations and people who are really, really, mega rich. It's a variety of people, but they all have money and they all have power, and they run this world, this country, and they're running it into the ground. For another reason, which I won't go into. They're destructive, they're psychopaths, and when you're a psychopath, you don't have full good judgment. You don't have empathy, you don't have compassion, so you're not able to put yourself in another person's shoes and see the whole picture. Um, and they think that they are superior because they don't have emotions, or they're not bridled with emotions, so to speak. But those are the people that she doesn't mention in her article. She just mentions like government groups and things like that. But these maggots, these subhumans in these groups like Skull and Bones and Freemasons and so on and so forth, they don't like it. They don't like being talked about. Just Google George Bush or John Kerry on YouTube, and you'll find that they don't even like talking about it in interviews. They're almost like shocked that the interviewer will bring it up, like they're offended. They don't like their names. Nobody knows about them. Do you know about them? I didn't. Yeah, they like to they're quiet. Or The Family. It's called The Family. I think it's a Netflix documentary. People like that, fundamentalist Christians who are psychopaths who think that they can do whatever they want to whomever they want. Or the Sackler family. I tweeted about them several times in 2017 and 2018 about them being behind the opioid crisis. There was a New York Post or New York Times article, 5 or 6 page article that goes into that. These are the people that could care less. I mean, that's not even a great way to put it. They want to kill us. They don't give a crap about regular people. They think that we are lesser in some way, and we are not. And I should create a video in a thought out video. I probably won't do it. I'm so mentally exhausted about why they are less and we are not, and they're going to drive this world into the ground, which they are doing. Look around you. All you have to do is step out and look at the state of this country, of the world, and if you can give yourself a pat on the back for that, then you are the most deluded person on this planet. But on to the article. The article can I'll post a link of the article in the YouTube description box. And I don't know if you can upload a PDF version of it as well, but I'll post a link. But I'll go ahead and read it from start to finish. And this is a good example of what's going on with gang stalking. There is one other video that is a good example of what gang stalking is. I'll put that in there, as well as the link to the secretive groups that I was mentioning just a minute earlier. And you can hopefully, they'll still exist when you go to look for it. But I'm sure my channel, when they kill me or murder me, or when they cause me to become disabilitated somehow, which I think is the next step, because I'm not going to change, I'm not going to quit, I'm not going to stop. Then I think my YouTube video will be taken down, my Facebook page will be taken down. They've already suspended my Twitter account that has a lot of evidence on it. So what are you going to do? Here we go. So the title of the article is called American Zersetzung. That's Zersetzung. And I suggest that you Google that. But yeah, here we go. So suddenly someone you are related to, someone you know pretty well, or your spouse, begins to have some bad luck, then massive bad luck, then never-ending bad luck. Car is vandalized multiple times, dog is stolen, she may inexplicably be getting a hard time at work, or even get fired. You try to be a friend, a good family member, a supportive spouse. You tell them it will pass, but it does not seem to. You start to wonder if they are oversensitive, overstressed, imagining things, starting to cause their own problems. But they have always been logical, grounded, even keel. They start to report to you that they are getting uncalled for rude remarks, rude behavior, even outright abuse and bullying from neighbors, coworkers, and complete strangers. Big deal, you think. People are rude. We will all experience that. Why is your loved one, friend, spouse suddenly so sensitive to this? Why does she think it is happening all the time? Surely that is an exaggeration. What is going on with him or her? What has changed? Weeks, months. The conversation and circumstances for this person does not seem to change. It may even be getting worse. It is getting frustrating for you. Others are distancing themselves from this person, making him her needier. You want to talk about other things, but this person is stuck in a rut. Then they start talking about people seeming to be following them, but always strangers and seemingly various people. But the odd behavior of these strangers is exactly the same. How can that be? It almost seems choreographed, seemingly play acting for your friend's benefit, and saying things that touch on issues and conversations that are private and unique to your friend. Wild coincidence? How often is that possible? Then you remember an old movie, Gaslight, a term for psychologically attacking and manipulating a person for nefarious purposes to believe he or she is going crazy, or at least to make others think that. I don't recommend any of these books, by the way, any of the movies that she's going to quote in this next paragraph. And it's not to make the person think they're going crazy. It's mainly to make other people think that the targeted individual is making it's the purpose of gaslighting is to make the person not go crazy because they want to torture you and elongate that torture. This is me talking, by the way. But it is to make others think that you're going crazy, because when you mention it, people don't believe you. Anyways, moving on. You do some research and find the book Mobbing, Emotional Abuse in the American Workplace. It is essentially adult bullying and gaslighting by a group. It is so real that Europe and Canada recognize it as a tort, an abuse you can sue an employer for, but the US does not yet. You dig a little more, you find an older book called Cause Stalking by David Lawson, a private eye in Florida who discovered networks of gangs of mercenary stalkers. They could be hired to stalk and harass anyone for any purpose. They could be hired to drive someone out of town, punish a spouse for divorcing the other spouse, intimidate local government to pass an ordinance or not pass an ordinance, punish an employee for suing an employer. They were mercenaries. They could not care less about the, quote, cause, unquote. It was also a power trip. They were part of a big, formidable group. They were the bullies of bullies, but hiding in a large group. They were invincible. 100 people had their backs, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands in bigger cities. Even police, fire department employees, hospital employees. Heck, who could not use some easy money? Especially when police look the other way or even participate. The fix was in. No one would be caught, much less prosecuted. Those who brokered contract stalking jobs became more powerful than any elected official. Like mafia who ran cities in the shadows, everyone was on their payroll. I'm going to stop right there and say that, remember I said this is pretty accurate to my experience. Most shill pretend targeted individuals online do not mention the police or the fire department or local community members like nurses and politicians. They're basically everyone. They could be anyone. I've had a white little boy pissant tell me that, and you will never know which ones we are. And he said that to my face. So, and also I'd like to add here, while I can, that it's not just this, that it's like a police and fire and a mercenary group. That is not it. It is the government, the U.S. government. And that is a fact. Now, does the U.S. government itself, like the Department of Homeland Security and the Pentagon, monitor me and monitor other targeted individuals and do this to us on a daily basis? No, that is not what I mean. They sanction it. They know this is happening to targeted individuals and they sanction it. And what I mean by sanction it is they are knowledgeable about this program and are okay with the protocol and the goal of the program, which is to eliminate, disenfranchise, and murder and torture undesirables. And the undesirables are people who are atheists, outspoken atheists, people who could cause movements, people who could lead movements, people who would be part of a group of people who cannot be bribed with money, cannot be bribed with a house, or cannot be bribed with, cannot be intimidated into submission, who are critical thinkers like me, intellectuals. I consider myself a pseudo intellectual, really, but intellectuals, think people who think deeply, who are introspective, who ask Socratic questions, who ask other people to ask Socratic questions, who are, for lack of a better word, John the Savage from 1984. A Brave New World, Aldous Huxley's book. John the Savage, meaning, someone who disrupts the social body in a way that is for the people and not for those in power. So I just want to add that the government is in on it. Police, FBI, CIA, shadow government, black budget. It's all connected. And for me personally, I don't exactly know what the reason is. I think for sure it's because I've spoken ill about mythical God, like the biblical God. And it's because a lot of things, I think I fit into all of the categories. I've been called rude before. I've been called sending mean emails. As crazy as that sounds, I know I've ticked off some simp, pissant men who are probably like in one of these private groups or something like that. I know I have. I have no doubt about that. Like, I have a way of just obliterating and trouncing someone verbally through just discourse, just argumentative like style, right? Like I said, my teacher in when I was 14 told me I should have been a lawyer. I have that kind of mind. I don't know exactly. I don't want to be presumptuous, but I think I'm also a leader at least that gets people would possibly get people riled up to think, to fight back, to stand up, to notice, something like that. So there's a lot of stuff. I think there's a vendetta here. People don't actually like me because of my style of telling people that they're wrong or they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. I've been told that I make ethical complaints. I've been told I care too much. So essentially, I'm not a bad person. I just do things that tick them off. And what they try to do is they try to make you into this bad person. And that's a whole other video. I've done it already about how they set your whole life up, especially from a young age, to make you look like a bad person by forcing you to go down these roads that put you in bad situations. And that is exactly what they do. If you even Google gangstalking, it says a smear campaign, yada, yada, yada. And if you look into some of my other YouTube videos, they do have technology to make you do things, make decisions, control your body, in fact. And that may make you roll your eyes and think she's crazy, but it exists and it's happening. So on with the article. Communist East German secret police even created and utilized a psychological attack on dissidents in the government's waning days in the 1980s to keep their oppressed population under control. It was a system of psychological torture and control called Zersetzung, which means deconstruction of every aspect of a person's life: their job, their reputation, their friendships, their family relationships, their marriage. The program of psychological attack and relentless abuse and trauma was indeed meant to isolate and emotionally destroy the person, with the goal to actually drive them to suicide. This is how East Germany chose to murder pesky dissidents who were striving purposefully or accidentally, by being a free spirit or logical thinker, to free their society from totalitarian monsters. That would be me. That is just like inherently me, my whole life. Moving on. The government did it covertly, backhandedly, and in the ultimate cowardly fashion, using civilian proxies, meaning, or in other words, civilian people. But communism had kept people so very poor that they gladly sold out their neighbors for fresh milk or cigarettes until the Iron Curtain fell in the late 1980s. Then some of the collaborators felt mob justice. Could your friend really have been put into such a life destruction program? In America, of all places? Could that really happen here? But something indeed world-shattering happened in the United States in 2001. 9/11 happened. Then laws that put the Constitution under attack was passed. Hysteria ruled. Were we indeed in a post-constitutional era? It seems so. The federal government told us, you can be free and vulnerable, or you less free but protected. Give us your freedoms. We promise we will give them back. One day. We promise. Trust us. So we did. And after all, this was America. Baseball, mom, and apple pie still reigned, didn't it? The FBI then created fusion centers, at least one in every state, and often two. These were created ostensibly so that the federal government could share information with local governments so that clues to other 9/11s might not be missed, as multiple stories indicated ample warnings for 9/11 were somehow missed repeatedly. So basically, they created these fusion centers to catch clues that another 9/11 might happen. But that's actually not the reason why fusion centers were created. This is me talking. They were created to suppress dissidents and undesirables like me. Moving on, I'm sure along with, actual threats. I'm sure with actual threats. And we are threats. People like me are threats. I've been accused directly to be like John the Savage. Going on, excuse me. The Department of Homeland Security was created to keep America safe. The key to its creation and operational design were consultants Yevgeny, Yevgeniy, Primakov, an ex-KGB official, and Marcus Wolf, ex-East German Communist secret police official. I don't know if any of this is true, but given that we gave you know, what is the word I'm looking for? Nazi scientists in the Nazi area, we let them come to the United States and stay here as long as they gave us the secrets, the studies that they did on the Jews. So it doesn't surprise me that the American government, which is pure psychopath, the worst brand of psychopath you can ever imagine, and trust me, you cannot imagine as you can't. They're disgusting creatures. Of course, they would consult with these ex-KGB, secret police types. So anyways, and by the way, I want to mention the Department of Homeland Security was created to keep America safe. Well, also look up National Reconnaissance Office, NRO. These are things that these shill articles and shill targeted individuals do not like talking about. They don't like it when they're mentioned. Just Google that and the badges, and those are satellites that are going up. And I'll finish by saying that the technology that exists with those satellites and other technological classified weapons is beyond your comprehension. It is beyond your imagination. Okay? Now, secret police official. Men who had dedicated their adult lives to the destruction of free societies. What could go wrong? Fusion centers were designed to be private enterprises that host local law enforcement, federal law enforcement, civilian infragard, infragard, and business partners who share critical information. Private enterprises do not have to respond to freedom of information requests. They are immune. But why should that matter? Infragard are designated HUMINT, and that's capital HUMINT, period. They are fusion center proxy stalkers and harassers, trained thugs who harass in the style of Zerzetzung, 24/7 sadistic harassment perpetrated against designated targets to destroy and drive them to suicide. But if they cannot be driven to suicide, then the accompanying massive slander campaign painting them wrongfully as a pedophile, sexual deviant, traitor, terrorist or terrorist sympathizer, or murderer or killer, or anything they want to. Sorry, let me pause. Let me read that sentence again. But if they cannot be driven to suicide, then the accompanying massive slander campaign painting them wrongfully as pedophile, sexual deviant, traitor, terrorist, or terrorist sympathizer so enrages people around them that they gladly participate in efforts that set them up to be institutionalized or imprisoned for the crimes they just haven't been caught doing yet. Sort of like Minority Report. So I want to pause there. This cannot be overstated. They do want to drive me to suicide, and they do want to do that, but they will do it after they're done destroying you completely. And second of all, they do slander. They create these massive slander campaigns, but you can't think of them as massive slander campaigns, painting them wrongfully as a pedophile, etc. The massive campaign isn't the right word for it. It starts when they're young. It started for me when I was in my teenage years, possibly before. But they cause the targeted individual, to make these choices, to create these scenarios in their life that make them seem irresponsible. It makes them seem like a killer. It makes them seem like a pedophile. It makes them seem like manipulative, or a prostitute, or promiscuous, or you name it. And it starts very early, and the way that it is done is very nuanced. It's very surreptitious, and it's very done very skillfully. And the reason why it's done very skillfully is because they have technology now, and they've had it for a while, to make you do whatever they want you to do. Okay? This cannot be overstated. Technology exists now to control your mind and literally send waves into your mind to make you do things that you would not do, or you don't even know if you're not going to do it. They just make you do these things. One thing to look up to verify this, and there's hundreds. I don't have the time. You'll have to listen to my other rants and raves, which I doubt you can get through because I'm so angry. Is Moscow Signal. Look that up. Make sure you find the article, the actual original newspaper article by the Times. If I find it, I'll put it in the description box as well. That goes into the Moscow Signal back in 1966, 1969. Oh, they love their 6s and 9s and 13s. When the Russians were using microwave signals and other waves against American ambassadors the theory was do one of three things. Intercept their electronic transmissions, communications, or control their minds. And of course, if this kind of technology exists and is being used by the government, do you think they're going to share this with you on CNN? Of course not. But there's proof that that kind of technology existed back then. And here's the kicker. There's proof on Google patents of probably more than 24 patents that exist that literally are right in front of your face, free information that show that this technology exists. That should be evidence enough. There are Google patents that describe how signals using waves, microwaves, radio waves, can be sent into another person's brain from a distance to make them do something. So this is not conspiracy theory, okay? So I just wanted to stop there and talk about the slander campaign. It's not a campaign. It's a life destruction starting from a young age. They can do it. It's relatively routine for them because they have the ability to take over your mind. I know it seems like it's crazy, but the truth generally is. Okay, I'm going to keep going now. You see many prisons and institutions are private for profit, and also InfraGard partners, and also the InfraGard partners are private for profit. Did I mention that the criteria for being put on the fraud, DHS, FBI, Fusion Center, terrorist watch list is less than probable cause? How is that possible? That means no proof, no witnesses, no investigation, and no validated accuser? Just an accusation. That is essentially a wink and a nod between those in a good old boys club. And by the way, it is mostly white males that control all of this and are doing all of this, and they have their minions below them. This is essentially a wink and nod between those in a good old boys club. Does that suffice to turn someone's life upside down and even destroy it without even publicly accusing them of a crime or even letting them know that they have been accused of something? Is this not contrary to the Sixth Amendment? And that is, by the way, right to know what you have been accused of, who accused you, and the right to a speedy trial. Those rights don't exist anymore, by the way. Gone with the Patriot Act and some other acts. Why would anyone set up such a system that obviously is contrary to the Constitution? After all, secret guerrilla armies hiding among the population is unconstitutional and breaks many international treaties in regard to acceptable practices in waging war to minimize war crimes and human rights abuses. If you are being encompassed in a war, wouldn't it be nice to know what it was going on and who the combatants are? And what about supposed real terrorists? Why, after being told people of a certain ethnicity and religion are blood enemies and threaten our very existence, were those people precisely the ones who enticed? I'm not reading this correctly, apologies. Why, after being told of a certain ethnicity and religion, maybe this isn't written correctly. Why, after being told people of a certain ethnicity and religion are blood enemies and threaten our very existence, were those people precisely the ones enticed to immigrate to our country by millions after 9/11? Okay, it was written correctly. I just didn't read it right. Did we let in millions of Germans during World War II? Why, upon closer examination of the terrorist watch list, is it comprised mostly of law-abiding Americans whose ancestors have been here for decades or even centuries? How much of the fusion center budget depends on the perceived terrorist threat in their area? Does it create prestige, career kingdoms, and validate really well-paid jobs to bloat the watch list with as many innocent people as possible? Certainly, they are easier to find and safer to surveil, harass, and terrorize than actual terrorists who are trained, armed, and dangerous. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a minute. Really quickly, the white, nationalist, bigoted, male majority of men in this country are the ones behind this gang stalking, period, at the end of that sentence. With that being said, they employ black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, other cultures, but these people are not in control. Not really. It's the white male psychopathic men of this country, bigoted, highly misogynistic, highly psychopathic. They are the ones. And among them, I'm sure there's some atheists and Buddhists and blah, blah, among them, but they are primarily fundamentalist Christians or very religious, very ignorant types. As even some of them that probably have like 160 IQ, they're like mentally deformed or ill in some way because they are psychopaths, because they have lack of empathy and no emotion. That's actually a detriment, not an attribute. So they like to put forward this idea that, and hold your horses, okay? They like to put forward this idea that all of this is happening because of the Jews. Let me say that again. They are putting forth the idea that all of this is happening because of the Jews. They have tried to tell me that it's because of the Jews. The Jews are destroying the US. The Jews are destroying the world. Yada yada. I mean, another video I could do and show you the evidence that they've tried to send my way. But here's what I think about that. The Jews are not the ones that are doing this to me, okay? Or if they are the ones that are doing this to me, then I have seen no evidence of this. Zip, zero, nada. And that doesn't mean that it's not true. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that not an iota of evidence that the majority of what I've seen, it's happening because of white people, white men, and white misogynistic, racist, bigoted men. So if I'm wrong, I'll eat my words. Of course I'll eat but the only thing I can do as a sane individual, critical thinking person, is watch and observe the evidence and try to discern from that the best I can. That's the only thing I can do. I cannot, make, phantasmical, that's not a word, these fantasy correlations that don't exist. I just won't do that. So I stopped and paused to say this because this paragraph that I read, and I'll reread it, is sort of her, remember, she's part of this white group of people, the ruling class in America that's trying to convince me in a subtle way, this is her way of doing it subtly, that they are not the ones at fault. But the problem is they are the ones that are torturing me, and if you're torturing me and you destroyed my life, then you are just as bad as whomever you are trying to point the finger at. That is a logical and reasonable conclusion to make. Anyways, let me reread this, okay? Did we let in millions of Germans during World War II? Why, upon closer examination of the terrorist watch list, is it comprised mostly of law-abiding Americans whose ancestors have been here for decades or even centuries? How much of the fusion center budget depends on perceived terrorist threat in their area? Does it create prestige, career kingdoms, and validate really well-paid jobs to bloat the watch list with as many innocent people as possible? Certainly, they are easier to find and easier to surveil than actual terrorists who are trained, armed, and dangerous. Moving on. If you're going to bully someone and you are a true coward, you prefer the most vulnerable target you can find. That's true. Then you strive to make him or even less able to defend himself herself by using the relay stalking methodology of an ever-changing group of people to mimic what those with superficial or pop culture knowledge of mental illness assume to be paranoia or schizophrenia. Okay, that's a mouthful. Then you strive to make him, her, even less able to defend herself by using the relay stalking methodology. And that is an ever changing group of people to mimic what those with superficial or pop culture knowledge of mental illness assume to be paranoia or schizophrenia. What this sentence is saying is, and maybe not in a way that lay people could understand, is this gang stalking uses this, and she coins it relay stalking methodology. And what it does is it tries to make the gang stalking victim or the targeted individual be, it, it tries to it carries out these actions and these stalking and the harassment protocol on that person, and that person is obviously going to talk about it and say, hey, this is happening to me. People are following me in cars with strange license plates. They're attacking me in the street. They're stalking me online. They're using technology on me. And then those with like regular lay people, those with superficial or pop culture knowledge of mental illness, like people who don't really know what mental illness is, are going to assume that you're paranoid or schizophrenic. They're going to assume the targeted individual is paranoid or schizophrenic. That's what the program is about as well, and that's what she's saying in this sentence. Although not well, I understand it, but I don't think the layperson would understand it. So that's what she's saying. Moving on. This even works on some mediocre mental health experts unfamiliar with psychological warfare techniques or history. This technology of Zherzetsang, gang stalking, it's me talking, it even, she's saying it even fools some professionals when they're talking. Let's say that there are some professionals who are talking to me, health experts, and I told them what was going on. They're going to go, what the heck? And think that you're crazy. So that's what she's saying too. And I'm just going to add, they can make someone believe anything they want. Remember, I touched on that. So they can make health experts, let's say a health expert believe what I was saying, and they would. People would believe me. I'm very credible, and I have a lot of evidence, and they would come to believe me. Well, the maggots can use technology to make that person literally think the opposite, take over their minds, and make the health expert think this person is absolutely crazy. She needs help. She needs to go into a mental institution. You may not believe that, but they can do that. And it has happened to me with my own friends. Literally like a 180. And that's not possible in a 180 style that is shocking. And so I'm moving on. And too lazy to think outside the box, i.e. arrogantly ignorant. Okay, and certainly this works well with law enforcement, with average IQs of 104, who are not trained to think, just follow orders. Man, oh man, is that ever correct? In fact, many applicants are turned away if their IQs are deemed too high. The remainder act as effective primary gatekeepers against equal protection under the law for those wrongfully targeted by fusion center predators. So the cash cow of the American police state surveillance state is the average American. Let me repeat that, because my maggots have told me it's also a business, this gang stalking. Let me repeat that. So the cash cow of the, quote, American police / surveillance state, unquote, is the average American, minding his own business, working, trying to get ahead. There's a never-ending supply of those types to blindside and throw into the meat grinder. Once placed on the list, InfraGard are alerted to the cover story accusations. Then they get busy viciously slandering the victim as a threat to be feared and nullified by any means possible to everyone they can in his life, as well as those in the general area. This could be thousands as they work their way through the churches, social clubs, PTA, etc., lying under the color of law. Of course, the lies are followed up with threats that the intended victim may not be told about the accusations. Okay, let me reread that. Of course, the lies to your friends and family and the slander are followed up with threats that the intended victim, me, may not even be told about the accusations, or this will reveal national secrets about the neighbors, friends, family, or even spouse could go to prison for doing so. So I'm not reading this very well, but basically they're slandering you to people, and they're telling those people, we can't tell you what we're slandering this person about. We can't actually tell you what this person did because they're national secrets, okay? Moving on. Most people do not know you cannot hide a crime using claims of classification. Well, we don't have any rights. They can do whatever they want now. Every single right that you can think of that you have been stripped from you secretly, surreptitiously, while you watched reality shows. Me included. Me included. Moving on. They are put on harassment schedules, told how to harass on their shift, given accounts and paid under the table with tax dollars laundered into untraceable gift cards, services, merchandise, etc., which allows greed to assuage any guilt pain, which allows greed to assuage any guilt pangs and makes it more convenient for them to tell themselves that they are actually patriots, not subversives. The Constitution and Bill of Rights be damned. So this is very true. Once you're slandered from a young age, for instance, one of the maggots told me that early on in my gang stalking, told me early on that there was another young boy whose gang stalking started at 19, and I think mine started when I was in my teens too. I won't go into it here, it's in my other videos. And so essentially the gang stalking starts, and brick by brick, layer by layer, sabotage and false actions are created in that person's life. They're made to act and behave a certain way that builds on their character. And to those that are watching that may or may not be aware, they think that person is a bad person. You know, they're a domestic abuser or a pedophile, or they have these pedophile thoughts, but they're not. These are things that the TI actually are not. But if you think about it, again, this is me talking about. If you are going to target someone who is someone like me, I mean, you cannot. I would rather die than become one of these maggots. I would rather die than live without freedom. I would rather die than live without my privacy, my liberty. I can't be bribed. I'm one of those people that will stand up and point the finger and will be a part of a million-person movement to try to stop these maggots. And, you know, I'm a good person, actually. I have my entire life stood up against bullies when I would be put into pain and suffering because of it. And it's not like pain and suffering like what happens in third world countries, but certainly I've been tested where I will stand up and I will be persecuted for it because I stood up, and I'm being persecuted for it now because of it. I have a natural inherent tendency to be like that. I've done so many things. So if you are someone like this and they can detect that you are kind of going to be a person like this, which they can, and I carried out my life, let's say I carried out my life without the gang stalking, I would be a relatively normal person to a person that is maybe going to be part of a movement, maybe be a thinker, an intellectual. Well, it's not going to be easy to destroy someone's life. A group of people, no matter how maggot-ish they are, and trust me, they're disgusting scumbags. It's going to be harder for them to justify destroying and imprisoning and torturing someone of that nature. Someone who's good, who wants to spread education, who wants to spread enlightenment. They're not going to want to torture someone like that. So from an early age, they're going to set you up to look like a bad person, a prostitute, a pedophile, a domestic abuser. Maybe you hurt animals. Maybe you kick your dog or something like that. And you know how people out there are like, oh, you hurt an animal, you should be thrown into hell or whatever. You know, you beat your child. You're a deadbeat dad. They're going to set you up. This is actually the smear campaign, is incorporating into your life these scenarios that would never have happened if the person was never a targeted individual. So moving on, the last sentence, they are put on harassment schedules, told how to harass on their shift, given accounts and paid under their table with tax dollars, etc., which allows greed to assuage any guilt pangs and make it more convenient for them to tell themselves they're actually patriots, not subversives. So if the person feels like you're a dirtbag, if the maggot who's doing the gang stalking feels like you're a dirtbag, they call themselves patriots. I mean, if I had a $10 for every time one of these maggots said that they are on a spiritual war or in a spiritual war, I'd have like $10,000 right now. No kidding. They think they're in the spiritual war, or they think that getting rid of you is going to be better for the country because you're insert smear campaign insult here. And they're wrong. They're completely wrong. But there's no way to prove that, you see. So, okay, moving on. In addition, fusion centers sell lucrative contracts to partners on these targets who are secretly pronounced terrorists, then secretly stripped of all their constitutional, civil, and human rights, and then secretly classified as biospecimens to be experimented on, used as lab rats to teach torture techniques to technicians and warfighters, and sometimes even killed using advanced bioweapons, chemical weapons, and even electronic weapons meant for war population control. That is right there, probably some of the most truthful statements made in a shill perp statement or article. We are definitely screwed around with and messed with. We are biospecimens for sure. Okay, so when these weapons were used in Cuba and China, and Moscow Signal too, on American diplomats in 2017 and 18, it made front page news. When used against whistleblowers such as ex-FBI agent Gerald Sosby and former attorney with the state of California, Jeannie Tanaka, it was hushed up. Okay, so these two people, I don't think they're real either. I think they're both shills. Moving on. Some targeted individuals are secretly injected with RFID chips to locate and monitor them like pet dogs, but also experimental medical chips that can time release drugs, cause movement or pain involuntarily to the victim, direct electronic weapons more precisely, or break down muscle, tissue, bone, etc. to simulate deterioration caused by disease to better understand the disease process. This for sure has happened to me. Won't go into it, but it has happened to me. In other words, these experiments may involve crippling a healthy person for the sake of treating a severely injured or diseased one whose insurance coverage is worth millions. While a healthy person has no value to such entities, but as a biospecimen, an involuntary means to an end. I'm just not reading this well, and they're probably causing this too. Let me reread this. They can mess with anything, but they're messing with my ability to read well, and they're kind of making me say words incoherently. I don't usually talk like this. But anyways, some targeted individuals are secretly injected with RFID chips to locate and monitor them like pet dogs, but also experimental medical chips that can time release drugs, cause movement or pain involuntarily to the victim, direct electronic weapons more precisely, or break down tissue, bone, etc. to simulate deterioration caused by disease to better understand the disease process. In other words, these experiments may involve crippling a healthy person for the sake of treating a severely injured or diseased one whose insurance coverage is worth millions, while a healthy person has no value to such entities, but as a biospecimen, an involuntary means to an end, profit. So that's definitely something that I definitely think they are doing to me. Even in death, the targeted individual still brings a profit, a kill bonus to his or her abusers. Stop. Pausing for a minute. I have been told on Twitter numerous times how they get a kill bonus if the person kills themselves. So this is something that I think is true. The DHS, FBI, Fusion Center, and InfraGard criminal cabal has one last profit to wring from the horribly abused body of the targeted person. Using private information garnered under color of law, many life insurance policies, trust funds, and even joint properties that pay the partner, quote-unquote partner, upon death are created by his or her tormentors to profit from upon his or her death. So they're saying basically that they've created life insurance policies for me, unbeknownst to me, and then when I die, they make money off of that. Loading up on maximum policies allowed per company, this could fill up countless coffers. County property tax clerks are often eager to share in such profit and offer their services in hiding such abuses from casual oversight or even serious investigations. One can imagine that such money can and is turning certain towns into murder-for-hire towns, where this is becoming a cottage industry with almost everyone in the know but the innocent victims. Once he or she is, quote, used up, yet another victim is chosen and the conveyor belt process begins again ad infinitum. After all, according to academia and media talking heads, we have an overabundance of world population. So what difference does it make? So what can you do for a spouse, loved one, friend, or neighbor now that you at least suspect another narrative is possible to explain the torment she is going through? First, listen, give him her credence as you have in the past, or credence you would have given anyone else out of respect for their humanity. If this is true, how well would you cope or survive? A main tactic of the enemy is trying to kill him, her, is isolation. If no one cares, he, she will likely be killed in such a manner as to fool a coroner ignorant of these weapons that the death was natural causes. Though one victim reported that he was found during the operation to save his life to what? Natural cause. Though one victim reported that he was found during the operation to save his life to have a singed burned heart valve after nearly fatal heart. Okay. Or worse, if you and everyone else gives up on him, her, she may end up in her own unimaginable suffering, accidentally compounded by your misgivings and unintended betrayal. So the rest of this is like this BS about sticking up for them, that I'm not going to really read because this is very important. Targeted individuals are isolated from everyone. Not one real person is put in contact with us. Our family, friends, they're all ripped away, and it's done over a period of time. Like I came up to Northern California in 2007, and over time they've separated me from my family and friends. They murdered my mother in cold blood, gunshot wound to the back of her head. So essentially, we don't have anyone real. And if anyone real were to ever, just by chance, and it wouldn't happen after your targeted individual, come into our lives, they'd be ripped away as well. So the rest of this article I'm not going to really read. Do not trick by divulging or do anything that would suggest to him. The victim does not need monitoring. The authorities are gaslighting you. Their job is to railroad the person into an institution or jail for profit. Your spouse, relative, friend will need moral and emotional support, maybe even financial to some degree. Cease and desist. Protective orders are a good start in pushing back and publicly identifying the bullies, the crime ring running amok, which the harassers hate. Support the person as credible. Finding quality and trustworthy doctors and a lawyer of integrity is essential. The Homeland Security apparatus may try to interfere. Advocate for your loved one so that you save his or her life, but also so that you educate others so quickly and accurately as possible. So the horror going on in this society and the world affecting thousands of victims and growing daily, which truly is an imminent threat to us all, if not dealt with immediately. Your loved one is a canary in the coal mine. Heed his/her warnings and act decisively. They're waiting for the overabundance of solid proof to a covert, elusive crime may simply come too late. So essentially, this is false, completely 100% false about support the person, and you doing something like cease and desist protective orders will do nothing. Nothing. I can't say nothing enough. You can go to the FBI, you can go to the ACLU, you can go to the police, you can go to, just name whatever organization you think would help me. They will do nothing. They are all involved and they can all be controlled and taken over. So that's BS. But you see, as someone who's a credible targeted individual and is a credible person to look to, she has to put something like that in there to make it seem like there's something we can do. There is nothing the targeted individual can do. So I just wanted to read this post because most of my posts are ranting and raving like a mad woman. Because number one, because of course we're going to be ranting and raving based on everything that's happened to us, and also because they can induce emotional reactions. Like I said, they can control you. They can actually make you move your hands and body in a way, take you over completely. They can take over your mind completely. So of course they can induce emotional reactions. So a lot of the times when I was writing or talking about myself in those videos, they were inducing rage and anger so that I seem less credible. So hopefully this one will seem more credible. Congratulations if you can even get through one of my rants. And I'll try to come back with more videos. Take care.